Welcome to this week's Claritysoft Focus Training. Today is Tuesday, July 31st, 2018, and this week's topic is exploring custom fields. I'm going to create different custom field types in a demo database. So basically I have a database that has 4 or 5 records in it right now, and then I'm going to go in and build different custom field types and demonstrate how those can work in your database by building an example. And then as we talk about them, just make different suggestions for how you can structure your database in Claritysoft, because there are some different techniques that you can use that allow data to flow from one module to another. For example, if you do use the leads module, you can build custom fields in the leads module. Then if you create those same custom fields in accounts, contacts, or opportunities, that data will flow into the corresponding fields when you convert the lead. By the same token, if you take those fields and also put them into the quotations and sales modules, if you're using those, when you convert an opportunity, the data will flow into the quote or sales module. So you can actually get one field of information to flow across all the modules in the database by starting in the leads module. So those are just little things that will include as we work. So one of the things I did want to point out, in our support portal, if you haven't seen this, by going to the question mark and support portal, if you look up custom fields, then you'll get to CS Live custom fields right here. And this is going to give you a table that describes all the different custom fields, what they are, what they do, and the maximum number of characters that you can have per field. So you can see a plain text field here can hold up to 4,000 characters. A number field has different formats where you can have no decimals, can have commas with decimals, with 1 decimal or 2. So this will be a handy place to go to look at the different field types that are available. And then down here, some of the more special fields that we've added, we have a drop-down dependent. Notice the little asterisk next to that one, the text dependent, the text wrap, and the lookups fields. That indicates that those fields are not available in Claritysoft offline. So if you are using Claritysoft offline along with Claritysoft Live, then you would not be able to see this data type of field in your offline database. So that's another consideration in your design to think about, because you can't see a certain type of field in the offline version. So those things are there. And then over here on the left, you'll see that each field type is listed with some detailed directions on how to create each one. So after the session today, you could go visit here and get further explanation if you don't remember what I've said. Okay? So that's there on the help site. All right, so let's dig in. What I want to do is to start creating some different sample fields. Now, I always try in a little sample database to have a scenario for the database so the data makes sense in here. So what I have created is a database where I have a business where I sell dishware, glassware, flatware, and table linens to restaurants, to school systems, to healthcare institutions, anywhere that they provide food service. So that's kind of the setup that I have. So my fields that I'm creating, I'm trying to fit into that mold. So that's just to put you in the same point of view. That's where I'm headed. And I'm probably going to create most of my fields in the accounts module just to make it easy. I will go to the leads module as well so I can show you how that conversion takes place, to show you how the data will flow. So I'm going to go to settings. Now another one here is, in order for you to be able to do this, you do need to be an admin in your database. So I'm going to then go to customization, and I'm going to go to the accounts module and custom fields. and I can add any custom field that I like. The maximum per module is 100 text type fields, which would include all the drop-down type fields. You can have 100 date time fields, and you can have 100 numeric. That ought to give you plenty of fields. You'll wear your people out if you have to fill that many in. So you should have plenty of custom fields available, and that is a per module basis. So that's quite a few custom fields in the database. I'm going to click Add, and the first field I want to enter here is a text type field, probably a very common one, and I'm just going to put in a facility number, or let's just call it ID number. Okay, maybe you get an ID number from someplace else that you want to put in here. It could be a combination of text and letters. So a text field is strictly that. It can be any combination of special characters, text, and numbers. And as it said before, you can have up to 4,000 characters in here, which is quite a few. So all I have to do is click that Save to save that. Then let me add a field. I'm going to add several fields, go view them, and then we'll come back in here. So I'm going to add another field for a market segment or industry type. Again, whatever terminology you want to use that makes sense to you and your sales team. And now this one, obviously I could make it a text field, but that's not a very good idea, because then that lets everybody type whatever they want, which then for searching purposes could become quite messy. So I want to use here a drop down. And so the drop-down field gives me the ability to put in the choices that I want the people to have. Therefore, all they have to do is click on the drop-down list and make a selection. And they don't have to type anything, and they won't misspell things, or everybody spells something slightly differently, and you will have consistent answers throughout the database. So my market segments are restaurant, school, and healthcare institution. Okay, and again, these are maybe not the best choices, but I'm trying to keep it simple. You may have a list, again, up to 4,000 characters long. So the characters would include the spaces in between words. One of the ways to test this, if you've got a really long list that you do want to put in here, is to type it in Microsoft Word and then use the word count in Word to check how many characters you have in it and make sure that it's under the 4,000. And then you could copy it and paste it right into here. So that's just a little hint if you've got a long list with, you know, a lot of characters in it to check it. So I'll click Save, and so I have now created 2 of the more simple types of fields, and then I'm going to add another one where I want to capture what their product interest is. Now this one, because I sell multiple categories or types of products, I want to make this one a multi-select, because here this will become one where I can click in checkboxes and select more than one item in the drop-down. A drop-down list is a single select choice. A drop-down multi-select allows you to select more than one. So as I said before, I'm doing table linens, glassware. I'm going to click Save for that. But you notice the structure of this is the same as the drop-down list. It's not until you actually get in the database that you see what it is. And then here it's telling you what the data type is. Now I'm going to create a number field, and this is going to be, if I'm talking to someone maybe as a prospective customer, I might want to find out, well, how many people do they serve per day? Because I want to figure out, well, how many sets of dishes do they need, or silverware, and that sort of thing. So in the name here, I can use this pound sign. Now here's another thought when you're designing your fields. If I type all this out, I'm getting a great big long field name, but I'm only going to have a number in there, you know, that might not be terribly huge, although some places it could be really huge if I'm at a university. So this is another thought in your design, is try to keep the length of the name of the field about the same as what the data that's going to go in the field, so that when you put this in columns, you don't have this wide column with this 1 or 2 character entry underneath, because that takes up space across your list view. So I may take this out. For me, I know that I'm asking number of people served per day, that I know that, so I don't necessarily have to have it in there. And, you know, again, just think about what's going to help you and your people know what's in there, but at the same time, not make it very huge. So here now with your number, you get to choose what number format you're going to have. It defaults to 2 decimal digits with commas. So if I click here, I can say without decimal digits, so it's a whole number, which here would make perfect sense because we can't have half a person eating. You can have 1 decimal digit, you can have 2, or you can have without format at all, where you can basically type whatever you want. So in my case, I'm going to do without decimal digits, but with commas. Okay, so I'm going to choose that number format, and let's do a date time field. And this one, I'm just going to, this is kind of a dumb date time, but I'm going to put date established. Maybe I want to know how long they've been in business. But again, you would have other dates that you would want, you know, maybe a renewal date for something, an expiration date, you know, any other, a birth date, any other kinds of dates. So I'm just picking this one. All right. So I've now added all these custom fields. And the next step for me would be to now go to what we call our user interface, so that I can lay these custom fields into the position that I want them to display on the screen. So I come over here and click right underneath customization on UI templates, which stands for user interface templates. All of these are in the accounts module, so I go here and click on the account UI template. Then I have to choose what access profile I'm setting these fields for. In Claritysoft, you have different access profiles, and the access profiles determine what each individual user can see in the database. And what's really nice is that you can have a different user interface template for different access profiles. So for example, if you had a person who was on an individual access profile, then you could set certain fields for that person to see, and then the all access profile might be for some other people, and you can have different fields for those people to see. So this is nice to be able to control that here, and you can have completely different layouts. Now the other thing we recently added in the last, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 months, is the ability to create a base template or master template and then copy it to where you want it to go. So that if you do have that 300 custom fields, once you lay them all out, you aren't having to do it over and over and over again for each access profile that you're using. This allows you to copy it. So I'm going to start here with the base template, and you can see here is these are the standard fields for Claritysoft over here. And over here on the left now, I see my fields that I have added. So I can drag and drop these anywhere I want them to go. So for example, since the ID number goes with the account, I'll put it here. I could possibly stick it up there. So anything, anywhere I want to put it, I may put it. And you just look for the little blue box. Then the market segment, maybe I'll push that all the way over here, and I'll put the product interest over here. Again, you can lay this out, and then you can come in and change it if you don't like what you did. I could even move my address information into the third column and pull this information into the middle column. Also notice that in the layout here, you do have 2 additional tabs that will show up in your record. So if you do have quite a few custom fields and they are in a sense categorized in certain ways, like maybe you're gathering some specific, maybe this has basic company information, this could have some additional detail information about the company, or perhaps in the contact record you might have, you know, more personal information about the contact. You can put those fields on this secondary tab. Maybe I'll just do that. And then you can rename these tabs to be what you want. So if I click in here, I can take the word secondary out and just say account info, personal info, again, whatever you want it to be. And then when I click away from it, that will become the name of the tab. So I can name it whatever I want. Maybe I'll change this to, and I can change the primary tab to company info. Okay? So you can do that to help make it, and then you could add a third tab if you need it. But you can put as many fields as you need all on these first 3 columns on that first tab, or you can spread them out. Again, it depends on how many fields you have and how you would like that information organized in the database. The other thing, once you've done this, is you go to this Field Configurations tab and you check to make sure that all the fields that you want to be visible are indeed visible, okay? I can see here this type A1, type A2 are not. I'm actually going to turn these on, and I'm going to go back to my screen layout, and I'm going to drag these over here because I'm going to show you how these work too. So those are there. They're visible. The other thing you can do here is once you get going, you can come in here and make certain fields required so that when someone is adding a new account, you make sure they must put in a company phone, or they must put in a city and state or something, so they're not being, you know, sloppy about it and not filling in the data that you want to have. And they will not be able to save the record until they fill in this required field. It'll pop up with a message and say, you must add a company phone before they can save it. So that's another control that you can have to make your people be complete in adding new data into the database, okay? And then the other thing you can do, if you do a lot of importing of data and there are certain pieces of information coming into the database that you don't want people to change, then you can make a field read-only, which means they can see the data, they cannot edit the data. So this would only be if you're really bringing stuff, you know, data in from another source that might have sales numbers or something like that coming from your accounting system. Then you can make those fields read-only where they can see the sales numbers from last year, but they can't edit them. So that's what that is for, all right? And then report permission allows the user in the reports module to view any existing reports in the account module, create a new one, edit one that they've created, and perhaps delete it. So you get to control this as well. All right, so I've got everything in the way I want it. I'm going to click Save. That's going to save this base template. Now I can say, well, I want to copy this to the all template, which I know I'm using, and the individual template, which I know I'm using. And I want those set up exactly the same way. So I select those, and I just click away from here, and then click Save, and it then copies this layout to the all template and the individual template. And if I go to one of these others, see, it's back to what the original one. This is really nice. Love this. So makes it a lot easier for everyone. So now that I've done this, you must log out of the database and log back in, and that will reset everything that you've done in here in the customization. So I'm going to come up here and log out. And when I come back in, then I'm going to open one of my records, and I will now see my fields. So the ID number field, I can type, you know, WES 23456 and put star, star, star. And it will take that information because that is a text field. It will take anything, okay? I'll deal with these in a minute. But now notice that my other fields that I added are now on this second tab. So you can see I have company info and I have market info. So I can go here and choose the market segment. This is a school. I can choose the product interest and I can say they're interested in this. And then the number of people served. I can say 1,500 and the date established. Now here we're at the current date and you certainly don't want to go back 100 years or 50 years or whatever. So you can type the date. So if I put, you know, 2-23-1950, use the dashes. That's how it displays it. And then notice, see, it jumped to February of 1950. So definitely don't use those little arrows to scroll or you'll be there half a day and complaining loudly. So I've put in my new fields. They're all there. I can click Save and Close. And then the other thing, once you've put in custom fields into Claritysoft, use your column settings. So vertical ellipsis button here on the right, column settings. And I can pull the information over that I wish to see in the database. So I can put this if I'm interested in it. I may not care. But all of these fields will be visible or available, let's say, to be put into the columns. So as you add them, you can put them into your columns and then display them. So now you can see. And you can see what I was talking about. This number's not really long, but this is a wider column because of that. So here, date established, I might put date EST because that fits the width of what's going to go in there better. So just somewhat silly little hints, but definitely hints. Okay, so those are all pretty simple. Now let's get back into some more interesting custom fields. One of the cool custom fields that we have, and I'm going to do this in accounts again, is one that's called a drop-down dependent. So I already have this drop-down here for the market segment. And what I'd like to do is when I select restaurant, I would also like to know, well, what type is it? Is it a franchise type restaurant or a privately owned one? For school, I'd like to know, is it a public school, a private school, or a university? Now, obviously, you could get into elementary and high school and all that, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then for a healthcare institution, do I want to know if it's a hospital, assisted living, or a nursing home? So what would be really cool is when I pick restaurant in my market segment drop down, another field will say, oh, you picked you picked restaurant. I'm only going to show you franchise or private. And that's called a drop-down dependent. So that's what I want to create now. And this one is really kind of fun to do. So I'm going to say this is my market subgroup just because I couldn't think of anything more interesting. And I'm going to make this one a drop-down dependent because this is dependent upon another drop-down. And what you do then is you choose the parent field. Now it figured this out because it's the only other drop-down field in the accounts module, so it automatically put it there, but you can click, so it's only looking for drop-down type fields. So if you had multiple drop-down type fields, you would get a list of all the ones you could choose from. So now I have my parent values of restaurant, school, healthcare, institution. So I click on restaurant, I come down here, And I'm going to put in the drop-down values that go with restaurant. So like I said, I want franchise or I want private. Then I click on school. Notice the box clears out. And now I type public, private, university. Then I click on healthcare institution and I put in assisted living and nursing home. Okay, so now when I click on restaurant, I see the choices. I click on school, I see the choices. I click on healthcare institution, I see the choices. So I'm going to save that. Now I also can create a text-dependent field based on the same parent. Now you could have another drop-down list, and this only works with a single select drop-down. It does not work with a multi-select drop-down. So the parent field has to be a single select drop-down. So let me do this real quick. I'm going to create a real simple one here. I'm just going to call it options, and I'm going to make it a drop-down, and I'm going to put option A, option B, option C for my choices. Then I'm going to create another dependent field that's called a text dependent field. So I'm going to add this one, and I'm just going to call it option detail. And this one's going to be text dependent. Again, the parent field is here. It went to market segment, but now I can choose my options. So you can see that as soon as it recognizes additional drop-down fields, it puts them in this parent field list. So I have my option A, option B, option C. So when I click on option A, I get a text box where I can type. Okay, then I can click on option B, and I'm not going to worry about the spelling. Okay, now this could be detail for your sales reps about something. I had somebody use this originally as sales goals, where they had different goal levels, and when you picked a particular level, then you got the description of what you needed to do to accomplish that level. So a lot of creative ways to use this. It's basically make a choice and get text returning. So I'm going to save this. So we've got these drop-down dependent fields now. So let's go add these to our user interface template real quickly. We'll go back to the base template, and now we have these over here. Now the market one, because it goes with the market segment now, I'm going to put it immediately underneath the market segment. And then the options and the options detail I'll put together here. All right. Now we're going to save it, and we're going to copy it to the all and the individual. Save. And we're going to log out again. All right. So this time I'm going to open my Main Street Diner one here and go to the market info. So now I choose this, my drop-down dependent shows up, and when I click here, I get the two choices. Okay. If I come back here and I select school, then I get the choices for school. And if I select healthcare institution, then I get which one it is. So that is really a nice thing to be able to do, and I know I get questions on that a lot of times that people want to be able to do that. So you can use this drop-down dependent field to create that type of situation. So again, I can choose my product interest for them, can select all of those. I can put in the number of people served and the date established if you have it. Now when I come to the options field, I can choose option A, and I get the detailed description in the text box that goes with it. So you can have one thing that goes with it, but it's a way, again, to display something that goes along with a choice. It could be, like I said, sales goal levels. It could be, I don't know, product descriptions, anything that you can think of that would tie to a selection from here and give you detailed information about it. Perhaps an insurance plan. You picked option B and it describes what the plan includes. You know, things like that. So I'm sure all of you can think of different things, different ways that you can use that field. Okay, so that's there, and then I can do a save and close and go back to my columns. And so now here I've got product interests. Now I can also bring in my column settings so that I have my market segment, market subgroup, and I could have my options and my options detail. Now this one doesn't have the subgroup yet because I need to go in and actually edit that field because I did it before I had created it. So again, school is here and I should see the right choices. So this one I'll just say is public school. Okay. So then when I do that and I do save and close, then I now have my choices. So that's another one to think about is the drop-down dependent and the text dependent fields. Then another one that comes up very commonly from people is many times when they have a company, they might want to tie it to a parent company. And they're always asking, well, how do I do that? So for example, this Lake Hospital might actually be tied to the big hospital system. How do I connect those two together? And so we have a field called a lookup field that allows you to do that. So let me go back to settings and accounts. And I'm going to add a field. And I'm going to call it parent company, parent organization, again, whatever makes sense. And then I'm going to make it a lookup type field. Well, for the lookup, you get to either do a lookup of all the accounts in the database or the contacts or the users. So you could have multiple lookup fields where you might look up the parent company, but then you could also have the contact within that company that belongs to this. So for an example of that might be a law firm. You might connect one of your customers to a law firm, and then within that law firm you would connect them to the actual attorney, and then you would know both of them. So you can use this in multiple ways. So I want it to go to accounts though right now. So I'm going to save this, and then the other kind of field is called a link field, where maybe you want to enter some sort of a hyperlink to jump to website or something at all. So I'm just going to call it a link field, and then you make it a link type field. Okay? And then when I save it, I have it there. So I can go out, and then again, real quick, UI template. You'll know how to do the UI templates when you're done. Actually, let's put this here. So we can put this one here. All right, so I'm going to save that. And then copy it to, save, okay. So Lake Hospital. Lake Hospital is actually under big hospital system. So when I click on that lookup field, and you can tell the lookup field because it has this little spyglass button. So when I click on this, that is going to pull up a complete list of all my accounts. And if I've got, you know, several thousand in here, then you can click in the search and start typing the name of it, and it will then find it. Okay, so it finds it here. I say, yep, this is the one that I want. It then fills it in here, and I've now connected big hospital system to the Lake Hospital. Okay, and the reason this lookup field is what you want to use, rather than, again, trusting people to type it in, like if you made this a text field, everyone would type, some people would type big hospital, some people would type big hospital system, some would type big hospital sys. It's going to be all over the map, so for search purposes, that doesn't help you. Whereas by using this lookup field where they're actually looking at a complete list of all the accounts and they're all spelled in the account list and you're matching it, that's the best way to go. And like I said, you could have the parent company of big hospital, you could have another lookup of the contact within the big hospital system that is the contact for this one. So you can use this in a lot of creative ways, the lookup field. You might have 4 or 5, if you do projects, you could have project firms that you work with, an architect's firm, an engineering firm. You could have the engineering firm name, the contact person within the engineering firm. You can have the design firm name and the contact person. So those can all be lookup fields and pulling in the different information, either an account or a contact person. Okay? So now, the next one that I want to do, which is new, and you may or may not have this one turned on in your database, but it is a calculated field. So what I want to add in here, let's see, and this is going to be sort of a dumb calculation, but it'll work. I want to add a new field, and I'm going to put number of meals. Okay, and this is sort of a dumb calculation, but I'm thinking number of meals per day for a particular institution that might serve 3 meals a day. We're just going to take it and multiply the number of people that they have and multiply it times 3. Obviously, that's kind of a very simplistic calculation, but it'll illustrate it. So again, the name of the field is the number of meals, or I could put total meals, something like that. And I'm going to come down here and choose calculated. And like I said, you may not have this turned on in your database. If you don't, then you need to talk with your account rep to find out what you need to do that. Return type, you can return the calculation as text, a number, a percent, currency, or a date time. Well, I want to return it as a number, okay? Then I get to choose, well, what format do I want? Well, again, I want whole numbers because you can't have a tenth of a meal. Then I get to come down here and create my calculation. So right now it's saying number of meals, which is a number field, is equal to. So my equal to is going to be the number of people served field times, and I go to the operator and I have all my mathematical operators, 3. Now that's very simplistic. Notice here for the function, you have all kinds of Excel functions here. So you can get pretty complex with the kind of calculation that you want to do, all right? If you need to subtract some dates, if you need to do if statement, that if this is true, this field is this value, then you do this. So this is very sophisticated here in how you can build a formula. So basically you're building a formula that you might build in Excel in the database to calculate within the database, okay? Now, I discovered this before, and I'm going to show you what happens. I put that in there, I click Save, and it comes up, and well, this time it gave me incorrect syntax near the parenthesis. So I went back, and I said, okay, it must want the parentheses around this to say this is the calculation, because I could continue to do a plus and then add something else and multiply something else. So if you get errors, just look for where you would put parentheses in, and then you save it. So I now have this as a calculated field. Again, back to my user interface template, drag this over here. So I have here number of people served here, so I'm going to put the meals there. And then log out. So now when I open a record, and so I've got some numbers here, I can open this. So here's the, yeah, see, it actually did the calculation for me, okay, because I opened the record. So it took the 2,000 meals times the 3 and calculated. And notice this is a locked field because it is a calculation. Let me open another one that doesn't have the number of meals in, and then you'll see how it works. So for this one, if I open this record and I go here and I type in the number of people served, so I'll just put 5,500, okay. Even if I hit the tab key, nothing goes in here. What I have to do to trigger the calculation to be done is to come down here and click the Save button. And as soon as I save the record, then the calculation will be done and it fills it in. Okay, and you also saw that when I opened the record that already had the number of people served, it automatically did the calculation. So again, you can have multiple calculated fields that can bring, you know, that can do different calculations that you want done. Now you can't use a calculated field, I don't think, I have to double check this. I don't think you can use a calculated field in a formula for another calculated field, okay? So it would have to be other number fields that you have, and then you can build the formulas to do the calculations. But this is, again, for some people, a very nice feature to be able to have, because then they can put in calculations, build in calculations that you would normally need to do in a spreadsheet, and you can have them right in the database. So that one is there. And the other ones I haven't talked about yet. There's also a currency type field, which is basically a number field, but you format it as currency, so it will display as currency. And there's also a percent field that you can put in and format it as a percent, so it sets itself as a percent. Where people have used that one in the opportunities module, there's a probability field in the opportunities module that is tied to the sales stage in the settings. And when you change this, when you set the sales stage up, you set a percent probability to go with the stage, and then it automatically puts it in here. And I've had a number of people through the years say, well, I want to put my own probability in. So I just tell them to create, you know, another field called my probability. It just has to be a different name, and then make it as a percent type field, and then they can type whatever they want. So that's a way around this one. And then if you even want to get rid of this one completely, you remove it from view in your user interface template, and then you can use just your probability. And then within this, what you can do, because this is another question that comes up a lot, is when you have a percent probability here, a lot of times people want to take that percent probability and multiply it times the amount to get a weighted amount for where they are in the sales process and how much that opportunity is currently worth. So that calculated field would allow you to do that. Okay. Oh yes, type 1 and type 2. Yes, Bets, I'm looking at questions now. You can have different template profiles for different staff people. You just create a different access profile, and then for each access profile that you can have different screen layouts so that they can see different fields in their own access profile. And then let me drop back. Thank you for reminding me on the type A1, type A2. Let me leave here. These are what we call segment fields that have been with Claritysoft since the beginning of Claritysoft. And they're used or can be used here in this segment search where you have type A1, type A2. So what you do with these is under accounts, you have account types 1, account types 2. These are strictly part of the account module, so they won't go anywhere else and nothing can be put into them from other modules. So you want to think of things that you would use for this that don't need to be anywhere else. So for example, you might have a status where you want to know the account status, so you can change the name, click Save, then you click Add to add your options. So for example, I would do perhaps they're a prospect, and I save it. So it's a little bit different than the drop-down where you're creating your drop-down one item at a time and saving it. And then they could be a customer or a client, maybe a partner. Again, you would make the list of all the possible options that would be a status type option. So I'm going to add partner as another one, okay? Then the type A2 can be, again, another category that doesn't need to come from somewhere else. If you could do industry type or market segment here, but if you're going to use the leads module and you're going to gather the industry type or market segment in the leads module, you don't want to put it here because you can't have it transfer into this field. So, you know, again, you might have to sit and think about it as to what would be a good one to go here. Perhaps you might have different departments or areas or business units. You know, maybe you have different business units within your company, and you might want to assign each account to a specific business unit or something like that. So I'll just do that as an example. So I'll just put Unit A. I'll just put 2 of them in. Unit B. So for past time. And then again, this is already in the user interface template, so when we go back, not sure if I have to log out or not. We'll see. So if I open this on the company info, yeah, see status is here. So I could say they're a customer, okay, and the business unit, they're in Unit B. And then when I do save and close, again, those are fields that can show up in your columns, but you can also use them in the segment search here under the spyglass. You can go to segment search, and then you can say find all my customers in Unit B, and I will see only that one record. Okay, so that's what the type A1, type A2 fields are for, is to use that segment type search. And again, it depends upon whether you're bringing categories over from the leads module or not. Okay, and for example, now if I went to the leads module and I copied the market and the market or the product interest field into the leads module, and I collected that product interest field, product interest data in the lead record, and then when I converted the lead record, it would automatically fill in the product interest field in the accounts. Do the usual closeout where, again, comments, go to info@claritysoft.com, either critiques of the session that you've had today or suggestions for new ideas. And then our support number is here. Again, you can call your support team at any time at 888-838-7487, extension 2, or email them at support@claritysoft.com. If you are working with your implementation specialist, then you can contact your implementation specialist for help. So with that, thank you very much for attending. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.